It felt like anything was possible now that I could write a song. It still is adrenaline rush. All these years later, I still get so fired up when I come up with an idea and write a song. No matter what your passion is, education opens doors. It's no question. These are just stumbling blocks. They're not complete, stop, you have to turn around and go. They're just challenges that have to be overcome. And that's part of any endeavor. Throw all of my time and passion into this and really, really try and pursue it. It's the best thing I've ever done. It's the best thing I've ever done. I feel 30 years younger. I feel rejuvenated in all aspects of my life. I feel like anything's possible. And I'm just so excited every day. All the while I'm doing all this promoting and marketing, I'm still writing and recording. And I'm still working at the university during the day. My schedule is nuts right now. But I smile as I say that because I absolutely love it. I'm having the time of my life.
Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Creativity Found, a community for creative learners and educators, connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them do so, with workshops, courses, online events and kits. For this podcast, I chat with people who have found or refound their creativity as adults. We'll explore their childhood experiences of the arts, discuss how they came to the artistic practices they now love, and consider the barriers they may have experienced between the two. We'll also explore what it is that people value and gain from their newfound artistic pursuits, and how their creative lives enrich their practical, necessary, everyday lives. In this episode, I'm chatting with Rich Chambers, who passionately believes that education brings self-empowerment and confidence and can open doors. Rich works full-time in post-secondary education, but he uses any spare time he can find to work on his creative projects.
I feel like such a fool for loving you. I'm a fool for loving you. I'm a fool for loving you.
Hi Rich, how are you?
Good, Claire. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Can you start by telling me about the creative activity you have chosen to pursue at this time in your life?
At this time in my life, well, I'm coining myself as a middle-aged rocker. So my creative pursuits right now are all music, and primarily music writing and music production. And I've always fancied myself a musician and a music writer, particularly. And throughout the years, I've worked at getting my musicianship better and better and better to hopefully one day be able to actually make my songs sound exactly the way I've heard them in my head for so many years. So at this point in my life now, I'm committed to writing, recording, and producing and releasing my own music.
How exciting. Can you now tell me, were you musical as a child or generally creative within the home or the school environment?
I was a pretty creative kid. I always kind of thought a little bit outside the box. And sometimes, like most creative people, they'll often say, I thought I was a little different. Like I didn't quite fit in some ways. And because I think my mind was always just a little bit outside the box. But as a creative person, I also think that my biggest strength is actually that I have one foot in the box, one foot outside the box. As for my childhood is concerned, I picked up music from my dad. As a small boy, I remember him playing his guitar, and I'd sit next to him and I'd be fascinated staring at it. I had my little Mickey Mouse guitar out and I'd strum along thinking I was playing with him. And I used to think it was the coolest thing when he brought the guitar out at Christmas time and family functions and sang songs. And it was a lot of fun. But I also remember more than anything, I have a vivid memory when I was about 5 years old, and he would sit at the record player and he'd drop the needle on the record. And with his guitar, he'd figure out the chords for popular songs of the time and he'd write down the lyrics. And I sat down next to him with my jaw dropped and I just stared at him. I thought this was so fascinating what he was doing. And in hindsight, it's obvious now because I have such a passion for songwriting that this was my first introduction to creating music or discovering what music was all about. And that's what I absolutely love more than anything. So I picked up from my dad. My mom wasn't a musical, but she was a huge listener and fan of so many different forms of music. So between the two of them, they really sort of helped inspire and grow that love of music within me. And being a kid who was always kind of doing things a little bit differently, I gravitated towards music and started doing things a little bit differently with music.
Okay, so when you mean you gravitated towards music, what form did that take?
At first, all it was watching Old Monkeys and Partridge Family reruns, which I still have an affinity for those bands and that type of music. It was 10 years old I first started playing guitar, and because I wanted to be like dad. And I didn't really stick with it that much. It was sort of haphazardly went at it. It wasn't until I joined school music and school band a couple of years later that I started to really have a passion for it. And then at 14, I wrote my first song, and that literally was it. I was so hooked. To me, music was so much fun and I enjoyed it. But I wrote a song, a whole new world opened to me, like this massive world of being able to do anything with music. It felt like anything was possible now that I could write a song. It still is adrenaline rush. All these years later, I still get so fired up when I come up with an idea and write a song. No feeling beats it. I feel like I'm just on top of the world when I'm making that creation of writing a song.
Yeah. And what were your plans with your education and what was going to happen after school?
It's such an interesting question because there's a couple parts to this question. The first part is, as a teen, when I started writing songs and started playing in bands as a teenager, I was going to be the next big thing. The naivety of a kid. In some ways it's beautiful, in some ways it's not. But I was going to be a rock and roll star. And I played in high school bands. I was writing song after song in my teens. And when I got out of high school, I hated school. I figured I would never, ever need grade school. I don't need it. I'm going to be a rock star. So I barely passed grade 12, barely passed my graduation year. And then I got out and started working as a musician. Oh my. It took 1 year of playing cheesy dives of terrible places, of you ain't got it kid comments, and basically going nowhere. The reality that most musicians face when they first start in the industry. And I thought, I can't do this full time. I've got to get something else going. And I went back to school. Jump ahead 15 to 20 years later, ended up getting a bachelor's degrees and my master's degrees. And at the point about 10 years ago, I almost started going towards the PhD. So what's interesting is here's a kid who barely passed high school, was on the verge of contemplating doctorate studies. So I got a bachelor's and a master's degree behind me. And I'm a massive, massive advocate of education. To me, I work, my day job is in education. I work in post-secondary education. And to me, it absolutely rocks. It opens so many doors. No matter what your passion is, education opens doors. There's no question.
So, why do you think that thinking changed for you? Not just because the rock and roll lifestyle wasn't quite as easily coming to you as you might have hoped. Why did you think you went from someone who really couldn't care less about the education to find it's so important to you now?
Maturity is part of it. Keeping an open mind, um, realizing that anything's possible. You can tackle anything. You can do anything. And there's a couple big things that education gives to a person. One, it's self-empowerment. I mean, simply here's a huge task in front of you and you can do it. And wow, it gives that you have that confidence. And I've heard a lot of people over the years, because my degrees are, I have a Bachelor of Arts and I have a Master's in Humanities. And my master's thesis was on Beethoven. So I've heard over the years that those types of degrees don't get you anything. That's a bunch of hogwash. Every education gets you something. With my education, I'm a massively better communicator. I'm a massively better writer. My knowledge set as a whole is better. The way I approach things is more mature. It's more sophisticated. It's more advanced. And all those skills come from post-secondary education, comes from opening my head and opening my mind, meeting people, reading and reading and reading. I make a point of reading at least 30 minutes every single day, sometimes more. And no matter what you read, it increases that brain power. Everything keeps going. So education does so much for so many reasons, any form of education. And for many years, I was actually a career advisor for students coming into the university. And they'd often say things exactly like, why would I want to pursue drama? There's no jobs in drama. Come on. You pursue your passions and you'd be amazed. I always used to say to students, you'd be amazed how many jobs are actually in every single field of study that is out there. Granted, if you're going into computer engineering, you're going to have more job opportunities if you go into drama. But there's still lots of opportunities in any field of study. And what education does, it opens your doors. And it opened the doors to me on what possibly is out there in music. And now as somebody who's pursuing a music career heavily, I have research skills that university gave me. I have the writing and communication skills that university gave me. And the list goes on and on. And all these skills that I'm practically applying to my music endeavors. So I'm a massive, massive advocate of education.
Yeah. So give me a bit of a rundown then of the time, the grown-up time when after, I'm not going to be a rock and roll star. What
Yeah.
did you do for work? How did you fit the education that you've been telling us about? How did you fit that in? How did you work around? Obviously, you're going to need to be making money while doing this
Yeah.
to survive. So tell me about that time.
Well, Claire, it's interesting. Like we all choose certain paths in our life. Robert Frost, the path less taken, that sort of thing. I mean, we all have whys in the road where we're always trying to choose which way to go. And that's what life's all about. So along the way, though, I finished my degree and I met a woman and we got married and we settled down and we raised 2 kids together. And all along, I started working my way up through post-sec education, doing various jobs, stepping up the ladder like most people do, and mortgages and all the rest, a lot of the standard stereotypical stuff. And at the same time, I never, ever let go of my passions. And I always continued in music. I play in a regular band for years. I was always writing music, that sort of thing. So as life goes on, you start taking these paths. One of the most advantageous things I did was being able to self-reflect and look back as I'm going through the path. And I realized that I'd never, ever let go of the music. It was always there. It's always a huge passion of mine. And I firmly believe that passions and pursuits can exist on multiple levels. It doesn't have to be one or the other in anything. At some point, you got to put more into something to make it happen and less into something else. But you don't have to go all in and be a post-sec education educator or administrator. You don't have to go all in and be a musician. You don't have to go all in and be a husband and not a father, all these sorts of things. So throughout the years, multiple paths were always moving for me. And I also, throughout that all, I wrote a fictional novel, which is something I always was on my bucket list. I always wanted to do that. And I've worked on my second novel, and I'm about 40,000 words in. And so I'm a writer at heart, but music happens to be the thing I love to write the most. But I'm a firm believer you can take multiple paths along your journey in this thing called life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned then that the music was always there.
Yes.
But what is different about it in your life now? What's the change and why the change that's made music perhaps come more to the forefront?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I laughed at the beginning of our podcast when I talked about me being a middle-aged rocker. That stereotypical idea when a man hits a midlife crisis and they get a young girlfriend, a convertible. Well, I bought a new guitar and started writing songs. That was my midlife crisis. But in all seriousness, though, Claire, I think we all look into that metaphorical mirror all the time, where you're looking and say, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? What's happening? And I literally had somewhat of epiphany where I was one day doing that. And I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, okay, I'm now at a point in my life where I'm not young, but I'm also not old. But at the same time, I've got, there's more road behind me than there's road in front of me. And I said to myself, looked in the mirror and said, Rich, you have this massive passion you've had since you were 14. It started even earlier. Why are you not doing this? I'm always doing it, but why are you not really, really doing it? And I looked in the mirror and I basically did not have an answer for that question. And that in itself was my answer. So I made a commitment right there. And then I am now going to put everything into this within reason. I mean, I didn't throw the entire kitchen sink. I didn't throw everything, I still have to stay pragmatic and rational, but throw all of my time and passion into this and really, really try and pursue it. It's the best thing I've ever done. It's the best thing I've ever done. I feel 30 years younger. I feel rejuvenated in all aspects of my life. I feel like anything's possible. And I'm just so, so excited every day, as opposed to and I'm at the point in my life where most people are gearing up for retirement. And I think I'm just getting started. And it's a wonderful feeling. And I firmly believe you're never too old to dream, or never too young for that matter as well. So the idea that dreams never have to leave you at any point in your life. They change as your life progresses. I mean, they'll adapt and they'll change, but they don't ever have to go away.
Yeah, that is a very good lesson and something that we do hear a lot of from guests, that you can change, that you can try something, that you're never too old, which is fabulous. Creativityfound.co.uk is the place to go to find workshops, courses, supplies, kits and books to help you get creative. So if you're looking for your own Creativity Found experience, go have a browse to see what's on offer so far. And if you can help adults to find their new creative passion, please get in touch on social media or through the contact details on the website. What does that actually look like when you said to yourself, I'm going to take this seriously now? What does that actually mean? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's, it's one thing being committed to something. It's another thing to actually making it happen. So you still have to live in the real world. I mean, you can have a dream, but to apply that dream is a whole lot of hard work. It's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of research and connections. And so for me, it meant sort of first as a producer, a writer, musician, and producer, it meant having to produce the songs that have been in my head for so many years and making them into a feasible, marketable product. So in my case, I mean, I'm a dreamer, but also you have to be a pragmatist at the same time. So I had to become a business person. And the first step was create the product, which in my case was music. So I've always had these songs, and my musicianship was always good, but never really that good. So it took me years and years to develop the musicianship to make the songs reality. And it got there. But the last step was producing. So I can write the songs, I can play the songs. How do I get the songs into a recording? So then I worked my butt off. I was on website after website talking to people. I was experimenting. I was trying out things. And eventually I got myself into, and I think I'm getting better and better all the time. And eventually I got myself in a role where I could produce well. So now I can write the song. Now I can produce the songs. How do I have my product? Well, the Kevin Costner movie from the late 80s, Field of Dreams. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that one saying, if you build it, he will come. I love the saying, except you got it in the real world, you have to put a caveat into it. If you build it and market it, they will come. So I learned very quickly that if you write a song, record a song, no matter how good the song is, you put it up on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. Hey, there we go. I just built it. They will come. No, they don't. You can look 2 weeks later and 2 people have liked your song or listened to your song. So then I had to learn how to become a business. I learned how to market. So that's been a learning endeavor too. And it's a continual movement and growth. But I've loved every minute of it. I mean, I found I actually have a bit of a panache for marketing. And it's shown. I mean, in 2.5 years, I've got a Facebook following up around 85,000 followers. Instagram's a bit tougher. I'm about 5,000. TikTok, 30,000. YouTube, 5,000. I've got 2.5 million streams on Spotify. I've got like 1.4 million views on YouTube, and it's growing. And I'm super, super excited about it as I learn more and more and get myself out there more and more. It's been an amazing ride. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Is it easier than it was first time around with the technological wonders of the world?
Yes and no. It's an interesting question, interesting answer, because the first off the top of the head, yes, for sure, no question whatsoever. If I had done this 30 years ago, there's no way an independent like myself could have got my music out and reached so many people. I would have had to go through record companies and record executives and things like that. And they're still out there. And that's where it's so much easier. Where it's a bit tougher is that now everybody can do it. So the space is so crowded. I mean, I forget the numbers, but Spotify is putting up something like 1 million or a couple million new tracks every week and things like that. So somehow you've got to find your niche in that huge, you dropped a needle into the haystack when you drop your music out there. So you got to somehow get people to find that needle. And that's a challenge too. I actually kind of love the challenge. But overall, yes. I mean, I said yes and no, but overall, yes. With technology, there's more chances and more opportunities.
Yeah, and because there are more chances and more opportunities, there are more people doing it,
Yes.
like you said.
Yes.
So yes,
Yeah.
it's its own little enemy there.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the songwriting, because you've already said about writing novel and that how much you love songwriting and writing. Do you write your songs for yourself? Do you have songs that you write that you think, I can't sing this. This isn't my kind of thing,
Yes.
And where does your inspiration and your ideas come from?
It's ideas come from everywhere and anywhere. Just to give you an idea, just a week and a half ago, I couldn't sleep. And I picked up the guitar. It was 2 a.m., 20 minutes, I banged out a song that I'm so excited about. It might become my next single. I call those did that just happen moments? Where all of a sudden it comes to me in 20 minutes, completely done. And at 2 a.m., most of the time, most of my songwriting comes from an idea. whether it be a melodic idea, a guitar riff, some sort of musical theme of some kind, and then I work at it, aggressively work at it. So often people say, do songs just come to you? They do sometimes, like the 2 a.m. song, but that's only about maybe 10% of the time. I love those moments when they happen because it's so easy in those moments. The other time, it's 5% inspiration and 95% hard work. And that's what a lot of people forget. The creativity process isn't just spontaneous. It isn't just instantaneous. Creative individuals still have to work at it. And I've seen it. And it's unfortunate because I've come on my travels, I've come across amazing creative people that don't have the discipline to make their ideas a reality, no matter what. And not just in music, but in anything, any passion, whether it be architecture, computers, cooking, fitness, on and on it goes. They have great ideas and they don't have the sort of commitment to make those ideas realities. So creativity is as much inspiration as it is hard work and commitment. So the majority of my song catalog is 5% inspiration, 95% hard work, where I sit down. Okay, what chord progressions happened? Okay, what kind of theme I got here? What kind of mood? Where should I take this song? What's it going to do? How long should it be? How should I arrange it? All these are sort of pragmatic decisions that have to be made. And I have sometimes songs percolating within me for years before they become completed. And it's a commitment. But I love it. I love the hard work songs just as much as I like the songs that come to me in 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's good. I wanted to touch on that a little bit more, actually. You did mention how taking this decision to take your music more seriously, bring it to the top of the pile, has affected the rest of your life. Tell me
Yes.
a bit more about the benefits that you're gleaning from this in other aspects of your life.
The list goes on and on, Claire. you know, um, Commitment. I've always been committed to fitness, but I found I ramped it up even more. There's a certain self-empowerment in keeping oneself fit and keeping oneself active. I found I was getting back to being more me, in the sense that I was more social. I was more positive. Every day I'd have a positive sort of outlook, as opposed to when I was sort of bogged down with life. We all get bogged down with life, even though, you love your partner, you love your kids, you love your friends and family and all the rest. And you might even really enjoy your job, but it's the same old routine. And we get bogged down in that. And I stood up and said, I'm not going to follow the same routine anymore. I'm not going to abandon it. I'm not going to completely forget about my responsibilities, but I'm going to now live my life a little differently. And I'm going to live it more directed and more focused, as opposed to just going through the steps. So I empowered myself to live my life as opposed to just exist day to day. And it's tough because it's so easy to fall into that. You just kind of go through your day to day, and people look for, I have a vacation. Wow, what a great, I look forward to my vacation, which is cool. But why can't every day be a day where there's something to look forward to? And that's the biggest change that's happened for me. I look forward to every single day. And the neat thing is, now that I'm getting so public on social media with my music's out there and things like that, and I coin myself the middle-aged rocker, and my tag phrase is rock and roll reimagined. And it's obvious I'm not a 25-year-old doing this. When people see pictures of me, they know this is a middle-aged guy. And what surprised me is how many people I've got. Absolute strangers will say things like, "You've inspired me." I got a note from a guy in India about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He says, "Rich," he said, "I'm 35 years old. I gave up the guitar 10 years ago. I've picked it up again because of you." And I just thought, wow, that's pretty darn cool. And that's just one example. I've had many other examples of people saying, "I can't believe you're doing this. You've inspired me. I can do things too." And I had no idea this was going to happen. And what an amazing feeling it's been to know that I'm inspiring and creating passion within people to go after their goals and go after their dreams. Because everybody dreams. We all have dreams. There's no question about it. That's part of the human condition. And inadvertently, I've been telling people to pursue those dreams. I'm now more open about it. And I'll openly say in some of my blogs and things, go after your dreams. Go after your dreams. You're never too old. So that's been a huge change. I've now become an inspirational person. I never saw myself as somebody that people could look up to, but that's something that's happened sort of just naturally by me saying, I'm going to go do this. And so it's probably coming out. Everybody says when I start talking, it comes out in my excitement when I talk. So I hope it's coming out now. So my everyday is so much more impassioned, so much more exciting. It's so much fun getting up and what am I going to do today? At the same time, I mean, everything in life, I have moments where, oh crap, I'm not getting anywhere. Oh God, geez, they turned me down again. Oh, I can't get my music in there and can't get my music there. These are just stumbling blocks. They're not complete, stop, you have to turn around and go. They're just challenges that have to be overcome. And that's part of any endeavor. If you're not challenged at some point along the way, well, then if it was too easy, how much are you really getting out of it? Part of the self-empowerment comes with having a challenge that you have to overcome.
I'm glad you said that, because with the inspiration side of things, which is obviously something that I benefit from with this podcast, in that I am able to share so many stories that I hope are inspiring listeners to think, I could give it a go. But what I also want to be able to put across is the reality of it as well, that it's not going to be easy peasy.
No.
And if you do something and it gets tough, most people just need to keep going through it. And here's my experience. I had a bit of a rubbish time, but I'm glad I carried on with it. And I really want to share the lows as well as the highs of, coming back to your creativity. So I'm glad you were honest about.
Thank you. The challenges are part of it. There's no question. And if you're any dream where you're aiming for something, greater than yourself, or something that's really worthwhile going after, you're going to have challenges, and it's part of the journey. And in some ways, it makes the journey that much more wonderful. If it was too easy, would you really appreciate it? I'm not sure. That's a hard question to answer. But I know that when I overcome a challenge, I feel that much stronger. I feel that much more empowered. I feel that much more like, hey, I can do it. I just took that challenge. And when the next challenge comes along, it's actually a bit easier to tackle. And it prepares you for the even larger challenge. I mean, here's an example that I often talk about. All these, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, all these shows. I've auditioned for a few of those. I got turned down for every single one of them. And I just keep going. So it doesn't bother me, because my music is, I don't want to get too much detail, but my music isn't exactly what everybody listens to right now. It's familiar, but it's also new. But I won't get into that detail. The point I want to make here is that often, you see somebody like a 19, 20-year-old, and they audition in front of Simon Cowell, and he says, you don't got it. And they break down and they lose it. And I can remember water cooler talk at work when these shows first started going, and Simon Cowell's, and he's the bad guy. People say, he's so mean to these people. And I say, no, he's not. He's just being realistic. The problem is this 19-year-old isn't ready to hear it, because they haven't taken all the steps to get there. There's no such thing as an overnight success. People think, well, they just should. No, talk to the overnight success and find out how many years they were slogging it out before they got there. And along the way, you learn. I always feel bad when somebody breaks down on one of these shows and they cry and, it's my dream and it's my dream. And I'm saying, okay, there's your first stumbling block. Keep going. Like the rest of us, don't let it stop you. Keep going.
Exactly. And that's the hard work that you were talking about. If you really want to do it, then you'll learn from that and go and do some more hard work. And if you're not prepared to do the hard work, then maybe it's not the right dream for you in the first place.
Exactly.
And also, there's going to be lots of times like that. And you've already said, you get rejections. There's going to be rejections, and you need to learn how to deal with them. So you got to take that on the chin and get on with it. So
I mean, I'm still getting them. And at this point, I can honestly say I'm a professional level musician, songwriter, singer. And I still get you sound like crap. But you also come to the point you realize that, that person might like a different form of music. And some people and I get frustrated, and this is where it gets really frustrating in the artistic world, whether it be acting, music, visual arts, things like that. People often forget that their preference doesn't mean something's good or bad. It just means they like it. And over the years, I've learned that. I have one guy, this is funny, on TikTok the other day, I put up a song and I put a caption, "Is rock and roll dead?" And it goes through, "Not a chance. It's alive and well here with Rich Chambers." A basic commercial for my song of sorts. But the very first thing that flashed on the screen is rock and roll dead? A question. And I had no idea the sort of responses that would get. And I had one person say, "Yes, it is. Give it up. Go back to looking after your kids." So, and I had a couple of friends say, "Why don't you take that down?" I say, "Why? It's the guy's opinion." So I responded and said, "Okay, I respect your opinion, but you don't have to start telling me to, you don't have to be disrespectful and tell me to go to see my kids." And this goofball responds, he says, If you can't handle it, don't put up the post. I responded, should anybody be asked to handle rudeness? What do you think? Question mark. An hour later, he deleted it. So I got
Really?
the little schmuck into a corner and he couldn't get out of it. So what I find interesting, Claire, is when I put up my posts, even I've had family and friends who have been following me say, why do you leave those posts up? I say, because it's all part of the conversation. You won't be surprised how many people respond saying, don't listen to that guy. He's an absolute jerk. Like, it's all part of the conversation. It just shows what everybody's thinking. And when it comes to music, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's do you like it or don't like it. So what if somebody thinks it doesn't like you? Who cares?
Yeah.
You're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to get past that too, and to have a bit of a thick skin and just say, okay, that person didn't like me. They didn't have to get mean about it, but and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. No, that is an attitude that you need to have. Not everybody's going to like it. And
Yeah.
if they don't like
Yeah.
it, they don't like it. Absolutely
And
fine.
but there's also a fine line too, Claire. Sometimes if you keep hearing over and over again, well, you can't sing, you can't sing, you can't sing. You also have to be realistic. Well, maybe I do have to work on singing, learning how to sing better. So it's a very fine line. And that's why I appreciate when criticism is constructive. I really like what you're doing, Rich, but maybe you should think about trying this. Those are the sorts of things people should listen to. Because usually if somebody's presenting something to you in that way, they're trying to help you. You can't take it personally and realize they're trying to help you. And anytime I've actually stopped, listened to those people more often than not have been right. And I've been able to learn from it, advance, and get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So what about the future? What are your hopes and dreams? We've talked a lot about dreams.
Yeah.
What are your aspirations going forward?
Well, as I keep building and building, I have those moments every now and then where you play this, devil and angel on each of your shoulders. And moments where I think, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. And other moments I say, well, Rich, you've got 85,000 followers on Facebook. That's a lot of fans. And so when I look back where I was 2 years ago, I've grown leaps and bounds from where I was 2 years ago. And so if I can paint a picture, in Canada, hey, we got a lot of snow. I don't know how much snow you get in the UK, and you're part of the UK, but it's easy to make the analogy with snow. But everybody will get this. When you're building a snowman or you're building a snowball, at the very beginning, it takes a lot of work to start things happening. You got to really kind of pack the snow and start rolling it around. Eventually, the snowball gets so big that all you got to do is push it down the hill and it'll go on its own. That's what I've been doing. I've been building a snowball, and the snowball's getting pretty big. Pretty soon, I'll be able to push that thing down the hill on its own. What that means in a more practical sense is that I want to get to the point where my music can go out and hit commercial radio, and it hits commercial radio and they start playing it. And I want to get to the point where I've started showing up on late night shows, Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert and things like that. And where my releases have a following ready to jump on them right away. So what that means is I got to keep doing what I'm doing because I've written a certain script for myself, and so far it's working. And I just got to keep building and building. The next big thing that I'm trying to tackle now is commercial radio. And any musician will tell you commercial radio is an absolute beast to get onto. It's so hard. But contrary to what people think, the internet and everything else, yes, is huge. But radio still is a huge maker or breaker of talent. Because what a lot of people forget, my friend and I were talking about this the other day, radio is one of those only things that's free. I mean, if you buy a radio, that's the only expense you got. You turn it on, you tune in, and there you go. Everything's free. And so many people still listen to radios in their cars. They listen to it in the office. They have it background at home. On and on it goes. Commercial radio is still massive, and it still makes or breaks artists. So that's the big one for me. I'm also at this point in the next month or so, I'm going to be looking for some really good personal management. A lot of validity behind me now. I'm at a point where I can start attracting a real manager who has those connections to the Capitol Records office, or has those connections to the commercial radio or the late night TV shows, and on it goes. I'm also packaging up a full album, which will be out in about 4 weeks, of all my previous singles and a couple new songs. So all the while I'm doing all this promoting and marketing, I'm still writing and recording. And I'm still working at the university during the day. My schedule is nuts right now. But I smile as I say that because I absolutely love it. I'm having the time of my life.
Oh, that is brilliant. We can tell. I can tell you're having the time of your life. It shines through in your voice.
Thank you.
So this Facebook, YouTube, etc. Tell us how we can connect with you, how we can find you in these places.
Thanks, Claire. Rich Chambers Rock and Roll. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Rich Chambers Rock and Roll. Or if you just Google my name, Rich Chambers, I've been working my butt off so that Rich Chambers is at the top of the algorithm. And so they're one of the, it's fun. This is a funny story because people go on and Google Rich Chambers. A high school basketball coach will come up as well as me, another with the name Rich Chambers. And what's funny is him and I know each other. He was my high school's history teacher. And we've run into each other over the years. We laugh at people think he always says, Rich, people think I'm a musician. I say, people always think I'm a basketball coach. It's one of the funniest things.
That is amazing that you know each other, though. That is so funny. That's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much for speaking with me today, Rich.
Thanks, Claire. It's been so much fun being on your show. And keep doing what you're doing because you're providing the forum for other creative junkies like me to get out there and talk about what we do. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Creativity Found. If your podcast app has the facility, please leave a rating and review to help other people find us. On Instagram and Facebook, follow @CreativityFoundPodcast, and on Pinterest, look for @CreativityFound. And finally, don't forget to check out creativityfound.co.uk, the website connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them tap into their creativity.